Well, good afternoon, my Facebook friends. If it's noon on Tuesday, you know it's Thinking Tuesday. So I'm so happy to be here again with you today. As you know, that Tuesday at noon, we put aside some time to really begin to think about how we're moving in this life, how our thoughts are guiding our behavior and guiding our decisions. So today I want to not start, but actually continue with some thoughts that I shared last week about self leadership. You know, as I mentioned, leadership is the big buzzword these days, and leadership is important. But leadership begins with self leadership. It's an inside job. It's not what you see. You start on the inside and you see the results on the outside. So, how am I governing my life? That's a very, very important question to determine how we're leading ourselves. How am I administering my life? There are many who wonder why they're not good leaders and why they continue to have conflicts, perhaps, in their relationships with those who they supervise on the job, perhaps. Many times it's because of a lack of self leadership. You can't lead others effectively unless you begin to lead yourself effectively. What you do for yourself shows on the outside. The results are also communicated in your relationships with others. How are you leading your family, for instance? Because all families have leaders. How are you leading your family? How are you leading your teams at work, perhaps? How are you leading those people in those organizations where you have an elected office, perhaps? Are you willing to do the things that you ask them to do? And are you modeling for them? Are you modeling to your children? Are you modeling to your teams? Are you modeling to the members of those organizations that you lead? Are you modeling the kind of behavior, the kind of decision making that you would like to see them model? Those are critical questions to ask to determine how you're leading your life. What is your self leadership like? So, self leadership can be one of the most challenging things because it's usually easier to try to lead others than to lead ourselves. We all have challenges with that. We have blind spots. So that's why it's so important to receive feedback, to ask for feedback from those who we're leading or those who are leading who we aspire to be like, perhaps. But even though it is difficult, it's challenging, it is attainable. And it is something that should be done continuously. We never reach at a pinnacle of self leadership. There's always more to be done. There are always areas in our lives that we can improve because personal growth, which is part of self leadership, should have no finish line. It's not like you're running a race and you're going to end up, you know, getting to the finish line. No, the finish line actually is when we have no more breath in our bodies. But as long as we have breath in our bodies, we continue to develop self leadership. We continue to develop ourselves personally. So it really can be a challenge at times, but the more we confront ourselves, and the more we are willing to go into those uncomfortable spaces, the more we're willing to keep ourselves open to self scrutiny, self discovery, the more successful we become at self leadership. We have to be willing to look at those things about ourselves that are not as attractive and how do we correct them? Because keeping them hidden is no solution because they're going to find themselves out anyway. So you want to be more aware of them so you can control them, correct them. Our greatest challenge, yes, is often leading ourselves. But we can't lead others effectively if we're not leading first by ourselves or leading ourselves first. The main ingredient, though, the main ingredient in self leadership is self discipline. Self discipline. Many times we think about discipline and we think about punishment. No, it's not that. Self-discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and to follow through with it. Do what you say you're going to do. Is the ability to see yourself as you are and intentionally make a decision to change those habits that are not moving you forward. We form a lot of habits that sometimes we're not really aware of how they got started, but we can trace them back, figure out how they got started and how can we correct them. Habits are changeable and habits are learned. So anything that we learn can be unlearned, can be fixed, can be changed. So we want to improve in those areas that we find are most challenging. That's part of self-leadership. Is it our attitude? What kind of attitude do you have? Because everything begins with our attitude, how we see things, how we feel about things. Is it your tendency maybe to cut corners and to look for quick fixes? How is that affecting your self-leadership? Because if you're afraid or resistant to doing the work, you're not going to be effective at self-leadership. If you're not getting the results that you feel you deserve, and so many times we feel we deserve something and we're not getting, we wonder, well, why? How come it's happening to this person and it's not happening to us? Well, check yourself. Check yourself. You are responsible for how things turn out for you because it begins with your perception, it begins with your thinking. So if you tend to cut corners and try to get quick fixes, chances are you're not really going to get what you feel you deserve or what you desire. Are you willing to evaluate and change your thinking rather than continuing the long path that you've always continued, hoping to bring change? Because that's proven that it does not work. So why continue? So self-discipline really allows us to move from good intentions, which we all have, to good actions and achieving good results in the end. Because we can have the loftiest intentions, the loftiest ideas, but if we don't apply them, if we don't move from thought to action, nothing gets done. And intentionality is the key to self-discipline, which is necessary for self-leadership. So they're all connected. Do what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, in the way you say you're going to do it, so that you can have the best result at the end. There's several ways to approach this in terms of intentionality. One can be holding yourself accountable daily. It can start with daily, for taking steps to allow you to accomplish that particular goal that you have determined that you want to achieve by the end of a given time. It could be at the end of a given day. At the end of a given day, you might say, or at the beginning of the day, you might say, at the end of this day, I want to have made 20 calls, for instance, to prospective clients to help build my business. It can start with that. At the end of the day, perhaps, I wanted to have extended myself to that family member, that loved one that I have been in conflict with, to help us resolve and move past this bottleneck or this obstacle. Or you might say, I want to awaken tomorrow with a positive outlook to put me in a right frame of mind to have a productive and successful day. So you determine what your daily goals are. And then those daily goals can turn into weekly goals and then monthly goals and then yearly goals. You determine that you are in full control of what you want to achieve, how you want to lead yourself, and how the people that you want to be involved with in your self-leadership. How do you want to change or improve relationships? As an example. It can be as grand or as minute as you want to be. It's really your decision. It doesn't have to be lofty, but it should be intentional. That's the key word, and you have to act on those thoughts. that you have to arrive at the results you desire. So just having the thoughts, it's not just pie in the sky, but you have to make it happen. And you can start small and add as you go, and check at the end of the time frame whether or not you're close to it, whether or not you've achieved it. But the important thing is to act on it. Because self-discipline, like I said before, is the ability to give yourself a command and to follow through with it. So small steps of self-discipline lead to great results in self-leadership, because that's what we're still talking about. But you haven't heard me mention it yet, but I must return to the main point that I always make and always emphasize on Thinking Tuesday. And you know what that is also. It begins with your thinking. And I'll remind you of our motto. Our motto is, your mind is a garden. That's where you cultivate your thoughts. Your thoughts are the seeds that you cultivate in that garden. And you can choose to grow flowers, which are those positive thoughts that help in your self-leadership, in getting you to the point where you're more disciplined. Or you can grow weeds, which are those negative, self-limiting, self-defeating thoughts that keep getting you the same unwanted results. So give yourself time to reflect on your thinking to determine how it is serving you. That's the one thing that's totally under your control. What you think, how you think, when you think, when you intentionally think. Because your thinking is driving your behavior, your actions, and your decisions. And that will really determine the direction of your self-leadership. Because we know that self-leadership can go either way, but you want it to go forward in a positive way to support your personal growth and to achieve the kind of life that you want to achieve. Recently, I was speaking with a young man who is so resistant to attending a particular school, in spite of the fact that he's gotten a full ride, a full scholarship to go. And his reason for being resistant is that he says, I know my limits. And he says that very proudly. And that was so sad to hear, because at this young age, he's already determining what his limits are. He has no clue about what his limits really are. It's limitless. It's limitless. His potential is limitless. But you see how your thinking begins to minimize how you see yourself and what you feel is possible. So despite the evidence that he's fully capable, otherwise he would not have gotten admitted, he would not have gotten the scholarship, he sees this as a setup for failure. So I reminded him that you only fail if you don't start. So he would set himself up for failure if he does not take advantage of this opportunity. Once you start, then you know what you have to change, what you have to learn. You have resources at your disposal that you can tap into. But if you don't start, that's when you fail. So I reminded him that failure only occurs when you don't start. So self-leadership, because this is part of self-leadership, self-leadership really involves finding ways to conquer those fears, because behind that feeling of not being able to be successful in that environment, there are a lot of fears. So self-leadership really involves ways of finding and conquering those fears and thinking differently. We can't resolve issues with the same old thinking that got us into those problems in the first place. We have to think differently. Allowing yourself to see challenges, which this is for this young man, to see challenges as an opportunity for growth. and beginning to feel more comfortable. We all need to feel more comfortable in uncomfortable spaces. Because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it cannot be productive. In fact, allowing yourself to be stretched and not being confined by those self imposed and self limiting boxes that we tend to put ourselves in. Expand your thinking, see the possibilities. That's part of self discipline, self leadership. Because leaders, if you want to lead other people, you have to think expansively. And you have to have a vision that you want them to buy into. If you don't have a vision for yourself, or if you're afraid to think expansively and see opportunities where others might see obstacles, then you can't lead anyone. You can't lead anyone effectively. You might try. So I want you today to reflect and ask yourself, how are you promoting your self-leadership? What steps are you taking to be more accountable to yourself, which is also part of self-leadership, and to your personal growth? How are you investing in yourself? Are you willing to invest in yourself? That's part of self-leadership as well. How are you developing that leader within you so that you can be more capable and more effective in leading others? So I'd like you to reflect on those questions as you begin to think about your own methods of self-leadership. How can you be more self-disciplined to move you forward in your self-leadership? Determine ways that you can be intentional in your path to self-discipline. And as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we all know that. So be patient with yourself. But I want to challenge you to begin today with some daily intentionality that you can hold yourself accountable for, which would help you to become more self-disciplined and maximize your ability to become better at self-leadership. So think about ways, like I said, they don't have to be grandiose. They can be small steps. You just want to build that momentum. You just want to get started. Begin by thinking about what you want to accomplish, who you aspire to be. What changes do you want to have in your life, in your relationships? Begin with some daily goal that you can hold yourself accountable for, that you can give yourself that command, as I mentioned, and follow through with it. Begin by thinking, how can you allow yourself to be the person that you want to be, to live the life that you desire? Begin thinking about what you want to accomplish. I'm sure you could come up with a long list. And if you don't come up with a long list, as long as you come up with something, remember that you are fully equipped, fully resourced. That's the way you were built. That's the way you are built. Allow yourself to tap into those inner resources. And as usual, I would say to you, if you want a thinking partner, reach out to me through my website, drcherylburton.com, and I would be happy to offer you a complimentary consultation to help you think through these things, help you get unstuck in the areas where you might be stuck. Also, if you found value in this message, as I always do, please share it with someone who you feel could benefit from it. Because when you find something valuable, you don't want to hoard it and keep it for yourself. All of my other Thinking Tuesday messages may be found on my YouTube channel, as you know, and that is Thinking Tuesday, Cheryl Burton. And going back to my website, as you visit my website, feel free to take a look at those programs and services that I offer that you can benefit from. So I look forward to speaking with you next Tuesday at noon for another message on Thinking Tuesday. Remember to be kind to yourself, to allow yourself to go into those uncomfortable spaces. Don't ever feel too comfortable and sit where you are, because that's not where you grow. So self-leadership is key to being a leader for anyone else. You need to feel that you're able to think expansively in order to allow other people that you're leading to think expansively, to see the possibilities, to feel that they can have dreams and that they can attain their dreams. But it starts with you. So I hope this has added value to you, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at noon for Thinking Tuesday. Take care. Bye for now.